Today we're here with
Samuel Friesen.
Sam. Yeah, man. So I kind of know Sam just a little bit through Instagram, social media, and Sam actually had me on his podcast, which was sweet. So then I figured, sitting at my office desk and I see his content pop up all the time, and one of his videos come up. I'm like, why do I not have this guy on my podcast? And he just was nice enough to agree. So welcome here, man.
Well, I appreciate it. It's a warm welcome. I'm so happy to hear my content shows up in your feed.
Oh, all the time.
Good stuff. It's honestly same to you.
Yeah,
it's
good.
showing up. It's showing up.
Sweet.
I don't know if you saw my most recent comment on your post.
Yeah.
Okay. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Good stuff.
It's crazy too. Like, I'm sure you experience this quite a bit with as you're creating different things. How much of a boost that actually is too when people engage and they do it and they don't just scroll by and you're like, oh, all of a sudden you see a comment or something. Yeah. You're like, nice. Has somebody seen this or got something from it? Yeah.
It's funny. I know we're like jumping straight into something, but there's, I don't know if do you have it that there are a select couple people that comment on every single post no matter what? Or do you not?
Not as much anymore.
Okay.
I used to, and then I kind of used to, like, I appreciated it.
Yeah.
But eventually it wore out where it was like I think they're like, oh, I think he's good now. You know, they're like, we're gonna show him some support.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So like a pity thing on your end or something?
I'm sure it was like some like
Wow,
some of our like other podcast things. There's a few like aunties and uncles who will like either like everything or engage with everything, and you're just like, that podcast is a little bit off the rails. So I'm thinking, don't listen to this one. But
yeah, my auntie Kathy, just everything, every story, it's a heart, and it's like a completely unrelated thing I'm talking about. It's like a posing photo in like a gym in the gym, and she comments, like, "Oh, love you, Sam, miss you."
Yeah, it's the best, man.
I love it. But I also have specifically these three people. One is this Russian lady that I don't know in the slightest. No one I know follows her. I don't know how she started following me. Comments every single post.
Oh, that's the best.
Every post I make, it's like hot, or it's like, or this new thing, because I almost sometimes track what she says, because depending on what I post, she says different things. And this last time, she started saying the word Stark.
Oh, what does that mean?
I don't know if she's calling me Tony Stark.
Oh, that's
or my most recent post, it was just Stark, all exclamation marks.
Dang.
I'm starting to wonder if
you should comment back just Tony ?
I should. I don't think she'd understand.
That's sweet.
I'm gonna do it. And then there's this other guy who's just like, "Good job, Sam!" exclamation every post, and it's within a minute of posting.
That's
every time, and he's a real person.
Yeah,
like it's not like a bot. He just has notifications on for me or something.
That's the greatest, man. That is, it's cool. Even like people like that, where sometimes you can almost take it for granted after a while. You're like, oh, there they are again. You know, your auntie or whatever, and you're almost like, maybe don't comment on everything.
And then they stop, and you're like, oh,
yeah. That notification was kind of nice.
It was kind of nice. Yeah.
We should touch on too, like what content you do and what you actually do.
Yeah, that's probably an important thing to talk about. So I, very similarly to Pell, I'm a personal trainer. I'm an online coach, and I've been doing it a little bit less time, you could say, than Pell. I'm only 20 years old.
Yeah, you're young.
I turned 21 in a couple weeks, but on the 22nd. But I've been a personal trainer since 2022. I started my business officially in September, and around May is when I actually got certified. And it's really just been this whole year has been me working on the side a little bit, but mostly has just been turning my business into something more and more realistic for me.
Yep.
And so, like, content-wise, I'm posting everything fitness related. I'm a big fan of posting videos in my house and then editing them up a little bit more and talking more about specific pain points that people have.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I'm trying to do more is videos in the gym. It's not easy in a public gym, especially a small public gym that has shit lighting.
Yeah.
Which I think is going to be getting worked on at our gym. I'm from Altona, Manitoba, so I go to the Rendezvous Gym in Altona.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's one struggle is edit video recording in that. I'm sure Zach could vouch for it when he did a video for me there. I'm sure he had a fun time editing that in post. Because
dang, he didn't say anything to me at all, but I can sympathize with that quite a bit. Speaking of the guy, he just walked past.
Wow, right there.
We filmed it at a local gym here as well, and that was a struggle enough. And it just makes me very grateful that I have this space because we kind of have the freedom to make certain videos or to think certain ideas and kind of sometimes be shitheads a little bit and be like, kind of get to a certain point. Today was a good example. We were making reels and I had this grand idea in my head and he was sitting there and he's like, I don't think this makes sense, Pelly, but it gives you the space to almost do that.
Yeah.
Where I can imagine sometimes in a public gym, you're like, okay, don't get in that person's way. Okay, this looks like it's free. We can do something over here.
It's like one thing I struggle with is it's a blessing and a curse. So I know almost everyone that goes to the gym because I go there a lot. I have a lot of responsibility at the gym. I do all the membership signups at Rendezvous. I set people up. I renew people. Like I have a large responsibility. I have full access to the gym. I can go into the offices and do all that kind of stuff. And so I know tons of people there, right? Like I know all the people. And so if I'm filming, I know there are people who don't want to be filmed. I know the people who don't want to be filmed. I know the people who don't care. I know the people who are going to look at me weird. I know the people who aren't. So then I'll go into the gym. I'll look at who's in there if I'm filming and I'll be like, oh, it's like a sigh of relief. Or I'll go in and I'll see these people and I'm like, crap, I'm hardly going to, I don't know if I can even film.
Yeah.
Right. And if I didn't know anyone, I just went to a random gym, I could just do it. And if I knew I could film, then I'd film and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who wants what. I don't know who cares, who wants to avoid this and that. Because it'll happen on the fly rather than me knowing in the back of my head, okay, am I going to record them knowing they don't want to be?
Yeah, you're almost anxious in that environment because you want to be respectful. And I'm sure you enjoy those people's company and who they are and all that. So it's like, I don't want to affect them. You're trying to be respectful. Where it's in a different gym, you can just kind of be like, I don't know that yet.
Exactly.
I don't know them yet.
You're just like, what is it? Just do before you ask, or it's like like do the thing, and if you get in trouble, you just say you're sorry, right?
Yeah, say you're sorry.
You didn't know.
Yeah, as long as you're not hurting anybody, it's like, oh, oops.
It's cool. Oh, you don't want to be in the video? Sure. I'll cut that last part out. You're fine.
Yeah, right? We did when we went to Nashville this last summer. We took pictures and stuff in the Redcon 1 gym.
Nice.
So some of them that I post now are still from back then.
Oh, cool.
Just because we built up a bunch and it's a different background, a little different piece of scenery, which is nice. And it was one of those. At first, I was like, "Oh, this is a little weird," and then I realized I'm like, "Nobody cares." I'm like,
"They're a Redcon gym."
Yeah, they're like, "Nobody cares." The unfortunate thing is, it was under renos. They had, I guess, had a flood in there, so it was all like ripped apart. I was like, "Why does this place look like kind of a shithole?" And then the guy in the change room, I'm like, "What's going on here?" And he's just like, "Oh, there was like this place was under like 4 inches of water."
Damn.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, this makes sense."
Yeah,
but
I'm hoping February-ish of this year, me and a buddy of mine are going to take a trip out to Houston.
Okay.
And he wants to go see Joe Rogan at his show, at the Joe Rogan show. He wants to actually see Joe Rogan. So it's like, we're going to go the second Joe Rogan announces he's doing it, because he doesn't typically speak there. So other people typically do, and then he occasionally does. Yeah. When he finds the date that Joe's actually speaking, he's going to buy tickets for it, and that's just when we're going to go.
Oh, cool.
And then after that, I think it's in Houston, and then in Austin is Alpha Land, which is like the biggest gym in at least America. Yeah. And I'm gonna just rip out to I think it's Austin. Either I'm mixing Houston and Austin up, but I'm gonna go out there, and go to that gym because that gym just looks insane.
It looks insane.
Absolutely insane.
The only thing that might for me would be a bit of a hesitation is like when people and sometimes like I'll train here and sometimes I'll train at Devlu's in Morden here. And just different equipment, different environment gets me out of work as well. Like being just trying
I can understand why you would train somewhere else besides your own place as well.
And it doesn't really affect me either. Like the people who have memberships there, they're looking for a membership. My space isn't public, so I'm like, that's good. Gets me out talking to people. And every once in a while there's like different crowds who maybe are a little overwhelming with the content side of things.
Are there a ton of people that film out of?
Not too bad. Like not when I go, it's usually like 40-year-olds and stuff like that. But there's been a few times where I popped in there and you get like 15 people around a squat rack.
Really?
And they're like just chatting and that not that many. I'm exaggerating quite a bit. And this is making me feel old because I was one of those people at one point. So I'm like complaining about the things I did. And then that gets a little overwhelming. I'm like, oh guys, come on. Like, let's do a little bit of work like in between this and whatever else, but for the most part that's not an issue.
Yeah, because I mean I get where you're coming from with that too, and it makes me I'm not gonna say I ever feel old because I don't think I can say that yet, to be honest. But when I look at the gym that I go to is very small. Like I don't know if you've ever been in Rendezvous in Altona.
I've driven past it, but I've never been.
Yeah, it's small.
Okay.
It's bigger than this space a little bit. But the way it's laid out is still isn't a ton of space. Like I've never been in Devlo's, but it's probably less than half of Devlo's.
Yeah.
It's probably like a quarter or maybe a third of their main floor space,
Okay.
with a couple like walls that make it feel smaller yet, because the actual layout is kind of odd. But all of a sudden, you say that there's 6 high school kids in there,
Yeah.
and they're just chirping around doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
That takes up a lot of space in that gym.
Yeah, and then that's exactly, especially at that age too. When you're in high school, you're doing dumbbell curls 1 second, you're doing lunges the second,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're doing bench press by the end of the
Exactly.
workout.
Yeah.
Because I know I did that stuff at that age, but it's like when you're bending there a little bit, or you're trying to get some stuff done, whether it's you're trying to film some stuff in your case, or even my case sometimes, or you're just trying to get your workout done. You don't want to be in there all day.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, boys. What? It's never girls though. I never find it's girls. It's always dudes. Dudes link up in the gym. It's like when girls go to the bathroom, they go together. When guys go to the gym, they find each
It's
other.
a flock.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a flock of gym bros.
I've never thought about that before, but the gym is the men's like bathroom
That's
scenario.
a great
Yeah.
concept.
This is good. So, in terms of like your training and all that stuff, what got you started in that? Like, what kind of got the ball rolling in the direction, like, kind of to where you're at now?
Yeah. It's funny because for the longest time, I didn't think that there was much of I think I just all of a sudden, it always felt like I all of a sudden got into it. But I was recently reflecting on why I became a personal trainer. I feel like it's something important, like why do you go into the career space that you're in?
Yeah.
And there was one moment in July of 2020, it was July of 2020 that stuck out, that I was sitting in this nice little apartment condo Airbnb in Canmore, and I was with 2 of my really good friends, and we were sitting on the balcony looking at the mountains. I'm just kind of trying to like lay the scene out for you. And all of a sudden, my one friend, he asked me, he's like, "What do you want to do? Like after you graduate?" He's like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." And he asked me this one question that really, really stood out to me. And he's just like, "Well, what do you like doing?" And I was like, "I love working out." I was just recently getting into it. I hadn't actually stepped foot really in a gym. I was just doing home workouts because my parents had a home gym.
Okay.
And I was doing home stuff. And for the last 4 years of high school and like junior high, my teachers had me do like CrossFit in the mornings and stuff like that, because our teacher was actually a CrossFit teacher on the side. And so she had like a setup where we were doing CrossFit. So I brought up doing activity every morning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into it myself. And then he asked me, he's just like, "Well, what do you like doing?" I was like, "I love working out." And he's like, "Well, can you do that as a job?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Yeah. And he was like, "Well, look at it." And so I just literally right there Googled like personal training jobs. And there's just like certification things showed up. And the top thing that actually showed up when I first searched it was this ELA, Elevated Learning Academy personal training certification course. And that was the first thing that showed up. And I clicked on it, and it was like, oh, it's this like course out of Calgary. It was this course that was out of Calgary. It was like a 4-month accelerated university program. I was like, that's kind of cool. And like a year later, I went to that course in Calgary, and I took it, and I took the course for 4.5 months and became certified through that course. And the only reason I ever found that course is because I decided to Google it while I was in Canmore.
That's
because
cool.
you get results similar to your location.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been recommended this course, because it was a small school. It was like a private university.
Oh, cool.
I paid about 1 year's tuition average, like it was around $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a 4.5 month course. It was 4 hours a day, 5 days a week for 4.5 months, plus a practicum at the end. So it totals to like 6 months. And it was all this. So and then I prepped me for an ACE certification, and I went through with all of that. But really, it was just, I had no idea what I was going to do until someone just asked me what I enjoyed doing. So it was never this like, I need to do something fitness related. It was just like, what do you enjoy doing? I was like, I can't think of something I love more than fitness.
What was going through your head, like when you all of a sudden this became real? Like, let's say you signed up for the course, or maybe shortly before that. What was your? Because I'm sure it's changed slightly. Maybe not entirely, but I'm sure it's changed slightly over time. But what in your head was the steps that were what you'd perceive that you're like, hey, that means I could get to this point, or I could possibly do this. What did that look like? That vision?
Well, for me, I have this intuition that I listen to very, very intently, because it's done so many good things for me. So for example, in that moment when I saw that ELA course, it essentially was like, cool, that's what I'm going to do.
Cool.
And it never was because I went back home and I told my parents about it. And then they were like, well, you should find something local. I'm like, you know what? Fair. I looked local. I had this bad feeling about everything I found because, first of all, I didn't really find anything in Manitoba.
Yeah, there's not much.
That was similar to that because that was a 2-year university course put into 4.5 months, essentially.
So you just kind of you can get it done with. You can put in the work and then
it's head down, work, do it,
Mm-hmm.
done. And so realistically, when I saw that option, I looked for some other options, but I'm like, cool, that's what I'm doing. Because I knew that feeling that I had, that was this direction. Because they're like, why do you want to move to Calgary? I'm like, well, like 50 other reasons. Because it's experience living on my own. It's all these other things that came with it. It's all these challenges that would progress me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, that sounds like the perfect thing to do after I graduate.
Yeah, you're meeting new people. You're getting different perspectives. You're developing. You know, that tuition is much more than just I'm here. I'm doing this. It's I'm doing this, but I'm finding out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That you can then, I mean, either I'm sure there's probably possibilities there or in between or anywhere else, but then now you get to bring that back to this.
Exactly.
And you get a perspective, which at least for me has been massive. I think that's something I missed a lot when I was younger is not branching out quite as much and staying pretty reserved, being like, I don't think I should go there. I don't think I should fit in there. I don't think I do this. And then the more I've done that as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh no, like it gives you you look at a problem this way, or even sometimes like just a question.
Yeah.
And you look at it this way, but when you get out of that space that you're used to, you all of a sudden get a view from a different window. And you're like, oh, that's sometimes like, oh, that's not even a big deal.
It's just
it's
the lens you look through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find that quite a bit, like in that experience, or did it give you a different perspective than you think you would have gotten if you would have stayed?
Yeah, like as in if I would have stayed in Manitoba to do some type of school. Yeah. I think that because at the time it was kind of COVID that I went, because I did the course from October 2021 to May of 2022. So it wasn't a normal time even, right? And so staying home doing it virtual.
Oh, so you did, it was virtual then, too. I guess it's right at the start too.
They had a virtual version.
Yeah.
My parents were like, you can do the exact same course from home.
Yeah.
Like they had, cool, ELA, we have a virtual version, we have an in-person.
Yeah.
They're like, why are you going to Calgary? You're spending thousands more living there. You're spending this, but you could just do it from your basement.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, but that's the exact reason I don't want to do that. Right. Because I want that different view. I want that change. And so when I went, it changed everything for me. Like, it taught me how to actually build a work ethic. I didn't know really what a work ethic was because especially my last year of high school, I didn't care at all. My last year of high school was in the pandemic. It was 50% in class, 50% home. That was my final year of high school.
That's hard to get motivated.
And grades were easy. They gave you everything. Everything was free. My grade 11 second semester was literally free because it was the start of the pandemic. They said, cool, everyone passes no matter what happens.
Yeah.
But like you should still try. So there was no effort from me on my end in the last year and a half of high school because I couldn't get myself to do anything. So I didn't go into Calgary having a work ethic. I had to build it. So I had to learn that perspective. I also had a teacher who was a really, really hard ass guy. And he taught me so much about just being, not taking things too seriously and just being like, okay, like, why do you care so much about this? Why, like these minute things, obviously things that didn't matter as much, and taught me these different perspectives. And now he's literally my coach. He's actually my fitness coach right now.
So does he do your programming?
He does all my programs,
cool.
Programming right now. Yeah. Because we connected so well through that course.
You wouldn't have got that if you didn't go there.
I'd have no idea who he is, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, he might have been my virtual teacher, but in that specific case, he wouldn't have been because he was doing the in-person one. But I had so many different shifts and perspectives that I just wouldn't have any clue about if it wasn't for that. And, I also had to make the decision at the end of the course if I wanted to move home or if I wanted to stay in Calgary, right? That was a decision I had to make. And I decided to come home for many reasons, but one main one being that I actually thought that there was a good opportunity in Altona with the gym in Altona because I had a good relationship with the owner, and he was, after talking to him, willing to let me do personal training out of there. But I don't know if you recall for yourself, Pell, but what was your first session like? Do you have a memory of Maybe not specifically,
Oh,
but just the feeling you had when you were doing your first sessions.
Oh man, I think so the first two guys I trained, I actually still know now. Like I still connect with. They're two young guys, and they're both played hockey, and I actually worked with them. So at the time when I started training, I was working as a manager at the Dairy Queen here. So
Oh,
I had two young
nice.
guys who played hockey, and they knew I worked out, and they're like, "Hey, would you train us to get bigger for hockey?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So, in all honesty, I think I went into it probably with more confidence than I should have had. Looking back now, I would definitely say I probably second guess myself a little bit more now, like almost that. Not saying I've gotten to where I want to get to or as far as other people have, but sometimes that what is it? Where you feel like you're a fraud a little bit. You're
Yeah.
like, oh man, you lay in bed and you're like, I could have done that better. I think I could fix this. I think I could do a little bit better here. I didn't have much of that at that time. I was just
Okay.
like, it was like things were rolling
Just pure
so
optimism
fast.
back then.
Yeah, a little bit more so. And those guys were so fun.
Yeah, fair
That
enough.
so my
Yeah.
first experience was that, and then it kind of built into okay, if you're enjoying this, it feels like you're doing an okay job. You're gonna have to start to think about these other things as you're going that are popping up. So then as time progressed, it was like I would say the third client. So if you conclude those two guys as the first two clients, the third client was when I was like I was like, okay, you better get your ducks in a row. You got to
Yep.
say the right thing. You got to be perfect here.
Oh yeah.
What about you? What was your experience like?
I mean, for me, it was very, very different than yours because my first clients scared the shit out of me, honestly. Because I had just recently been allowed by the owner of the gym in Altona to be like, yeah, you can train someone in there. No one in that gym knows that I'm a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows that have done anything whatsoever to do that. No one knows that that person that I'm talking to is like paying me for a session.
Yeah.
And so walking into the gym and going to greet someone and then like working out with them, every single person is staring at me. I mean, it's a small gym, so maybe that's like 4 people.
Yep.
But there's 4 people there that are working out that are like, what is going on over
There's
there?
still 4 more sets of eyes than
Yeah.
probably what you've ever been used to.
Exactly,
in the past. Yeah.
right? And so, you know, if it's 0 people, I remember there was times where there was no one in, and I can focus and I can do my thing, but then I'd hear that door open, and I'd have to like look. I'd have to be like, who's coming in? Because it would scare me. And there were certain people that would scare me more because there were people that felt more professional.
Mm-hmm.
But it was actually terrifying. I felt like such a fraud. I'm like, I shouldn't be in here training someone. I was like, I shouldn't do that at all. And I mean, you fast forward now, I meet with 3 people a day to sign up memberships, and then I have a session with someone, and then I'm having a session with someone, talking to them, and then someone else that I know comes in, and we all end up having a conversation, and they're like, oh, you know, don't worry, I won't interrupt your session. It's like, now it's this like formal and like actual real thing where
Yeah.
everyone else is respecting my session. It's not like, why is this one person, random guy having a session in this public gym? I'm like the guy who trains people now.
So they know you. Do you think that your confidence kind of has grown in that area, and do you think that played into it? Like you could maybe have with the confidence you have now, because that's to me sounds like a big part of it. Do you think if you had the confidence you had now and you stepped into the gym with a client, like let's say it's the first day stepping into that gym with a client, do you think it would be a similar experience? Like you'd be way less nervous still?
I
Or
think
do you
I think I'd be confident. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Like,
think if I had to go to Snap Fitness in Winkler,
Yeah.
and I had to train someone there, the only problem I would have is knowing whether or not I'm allowed to train someone there.
Yeah.
Assuming that's not a problem, and I'm just having a session at a different gym. Oh yeah, and that person is new, and they're just like a type of client that I'm familiar with. Then 100%, I'm going into that with full confidence.
Isn't that crazy though? Like how these stories we make up in our head, like these, because yeah, it's like this idea of we make up all these stories of the unknown and we create these things. You know, who's gonna walk in? I know that feeling too. Like I got lucky in the original setup I was in. It was Youth for Christ gym, so and it was small and it was all guys. So I didn't at the start I didn't train any girls, which was for me was good. It was like, you know, you're a guy, so you're more comfortable with guys most of the time.
My first client was a guy, and the next like 3 were all girls.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's and then so then I had that setting, and I'd been in that gym so many times.
Okay.
But that quickly transitioned into they had given me or allowed me to use the gym for free. And it eventually felt a little bit like I was taking advantage of the situation. Like I wasn't providing what they were providing me. Like they were providing me a space. I wasn't doing much beyond making myself money
Yeah.
and using the gym to train. So I'm like, I renovated my garage, set it up there, and I would still work out at that gym, but I just had this set up for training, which was
Makes
nice.
sense.
But yeah, over time, even in this space, being private, I remember so many times, like it was like almost starting over again, where someone came in. I'm like, oh, I hope they think this is professional enough. I hope I'm wearing this. I hope I'm doing this. I hope I'm doing this. And then as I progressed, I realized I'm like, oh no, people, especially in a personal training, they want you to be personable. They want to connect with you. They want to be able to be like, oh, this is a human just like me. They don't want a robot. And I thought, I'm like, I gotta do this. And then I'm gonna realize, oh, this sucks if I do this.
I have a real life example from that from literally today.
Oh yeah.
Because what you said about you have to wear something specific and you have to. So I've never needed a dress code, but I've given myself a dress code in the past for my coaching sessions. So for example, Rendezvous, the gym in Altona, has a t-shirt, and Kurt gave me one of those t-shirts, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to wear that for every single session. And so like every single session I'd have to wear that black Rendezvous t-shirt. I'm not even Rendezvous branded. I'm my own brand.
Yeah.
But I have to wear his t-shirt when I'm doing a session. It felt as though because I had to prove and you had to look at me and I had to look like an employee or something, right? I had that some sort of mindset. And so my first sessions, probably up until 2 months ago, every session I would wear that shirt or something super just completely bland and or I'd wear like my black pants, or I'd just wear something formal because you can't like go into your gym shorts or whatever.
Yeah.
But today, for example, I was going to train right after my session, and I was having a half-hour session with a client who signed up for a program, and I come up with, it was like an online program, and I give them, because they're local, to just like complimentary sessions so that I can see how they move and give them something as well when they sign up for like an online program.
Yep.
So I was doing our first session. It wasn't our first time meeting, but it was our second or third time. And I had my 5-inch shorts that I was going to train in after, my nice white Young LA shorts, and I had a like massive pump cover on, and I went and I did our whole session with her in that.
Yeah.
And I was with her, I was training, and we were just I felt today like I was incredibly personable. Like I felt very, very natural and real today. And I wonder if some of that, and you made me think of this because you said what you said, is like, was that because I actually just decided to go into it not being like, okay, I have to be like this. I have to be like this. I just get to go into it.
Yeah.
And that felt like a big shift for me. And she literally texted me after the session saying, oh my goodness, that was really, really cool. That was really fun. Like, I'm going to take some of your tips in and actually start implementing them. Because, you know, even at the end, for example, she was about to head out because obviously I wasn't going to do the little bit of cardio with her because I was like, well, I'm going to show you other stuff with you, a bit of extra time because I don't want to stand there and watch you do the same cardio. Yeah. She was like, okay, I'll talk to you later. I'm like, are you going to do your like 10 minutes on the elliptical? She's like, yeah, we did some extra yesterday. And I'm like, how much did you do yesterday? Because she's just supposed to do 10 minutes at the end of every workout. Yeah. And she was like, I did 12 minutes yesterday. I'm like, so you did 2 extra minutes and then now you don't have to do it today? And she's looking at me like, I thought that was good enough. I'm like, you go do 8 minutes today and I'll call you good. And I'll call you good. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, it's 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's 8 minutes. And then she's still about to walk out and I walk in. I'm like, I'm going to go warm up for my workout while you do your 8 minutes. And she's like, okay. And she goes and does it.
Funny.
And so I just felt very real. And I wonder if some of that is because I'm letting myself be more myself over time.
I think, you know, I actually haven't thought of it to that extent, but I think that is real. Like, I'll definitely try to wear certain things or try to, you know, especially carrying yourself in a certain way, I think is big, especially in the fitness world. I think we've all seen kind of the person who's really settled into the gym and then they want to train people. And then you're like, hey, you actually have to train people though. Like you have to actually do a job here. But I think there's a balance between also finding a space where you're like you said, you can be real. Because I think if you do get too stiff, people can feel that. And I know I can feel it off of people sometimes. And then when you get into that zone where you're comfortable, you feel good about yourself, and then you're connecting with that client and you're communicating in a way. There's something about that where you're in this environment and everything's kind of coming together, and you feel like, hey, I'm here and they're coming here for me. Mm-hmm. I have some value and something to offer them. Let me give it to them. I'm gonna give them that value. That's my opportunity, and it makes you feel kind of good. It makes you that job feel worth it,
Yeah.
which is nice when you actually get to kind of hone in on that, which it doesn't always happen. I know from my personal position, there's some days where I'm like, oh man, I can't get in a rhythm, or there's a lot of resistance with clients in terms of different things, and you're like, okay, this one dragged today. I didn't get a whole lot of momentum, but we made it through.
I mean, I know even as well, for example, because like you said, like a happy medium, a balance. Like for example, I'm not gonna pull into a session with a stringer.
Yeah.
But I think that when you relate it to, I don't want to change my coaching style for a client that would necessarily respond better to something else, because I have a way of doing things and you might not be the right fit for me, rather than me having to change for you.
Oh, and I think that's a great like outlook, especially like it took me way longer than to figure out what you just said than it's taken you, because I did do that. I really, when I started, I think my sessions were actually like $15 a session when I started.
Yeah, that's cheap.
They were like $15. And I wouldn't try to do like everything. Like I wouldn't try and do CrossFit because I didn't know enough about it. And I wouldn't try and do like Olympic weightlifting because I didn't know enough about it. But I would cater to people who I wasn't right for.
Do you have an example or something?
I'm trying to think of a good one. Maybe something more like, let's say marathon running, for example.
Yeah.
Like I can do it and I could do it, but for me, I didn't enjoy it, which in turn...
Coaching it or actually doing it?
Oh, both.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
Yeah, more so coaching it though.
Yeah.
Like
Okay,
I could do it and but when it starts to lean almost 90% in that direction, like let's say with that case, it was like, oh man, I'm doing a disservice to this person now, because there's somebody else out there who this is their thing, and my thing isn't their thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not providing this person with what they need, which eventually led me to start to structure out, hey, what is this thing? What am I trying to give, and where do I think my value is for them? Which I think you just touched on, that you figured out way sooner than I did.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for myself, if we're going off of the same example with someone who's like a marathon runner, what I would probably do in a scenario, if someone were to come up to me and say, I want to run my first marathon, I would try to dig into the concept of why that is. Why do you want to run a marathon? And in a case, for example, they might say something along the lines of, well, I've always been overweight and a marathon looks like a way to do that. Yeah. In that case, I'm going to coach that person.
Yeah.
Right. But if that person's like, I'm a professional marathon runner, I'm looking to try to get into the Olympics this year.
Yeah.
And this is obviously super extreme, I'm trying to do it professionally. Like I would actually go into runs that would make me money, right? Like there is like value to placing well, and I need to improve on the last 10% of my run. I need to improve upon my final burst of energy after 5.5 hours of running. Yeah. Like I'm not going to try to tell you that I'm going to be able to help you improve that, right? Because that is just something super specific in performance. And when it comes to performance training, I'm not super, super honed on that. Like I have had one client who, in the past was doing like, Pembina Valley Hawks hockey, was doing pretty high level, might go a little bit further yet with it as well. I'm not sure. Depends on how much they commit to it. But I coached them for a while and I thought I did an okay job. But like looking back, I'm like, did they realistically get everything that maybe I wanted to deliver on, purely because I wasn't good enough with delivering that type of product that they were looking for? Not really relevant how well they did in implementing what I did give them, but just from my own perspective, I'm like, did I actually give them with stuff that would actually improve them very well? I'd probably want to evaluate myself a little bit more there.
Which is so, like, that's so tough.
Yeah, it's hard to just say, I didn't do a good job with that person.
Yeah, it's like, especially when you're starting. I think anybody who's kind of good in the field of training and stuff like that, you're always kind of getting started, because there's always different perspectives and different things you can grab onto. And then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh crap, I could have done this and I could have done this. And you're like, dang, like, and I think that's what makes those like comments on posts or comments from clients so valuable, because you're like, by the sounds of it, pretty hard on yourself in terms of like, I could have stepped it up there. I could have, I think if I look back, I could have like tweaked this a little bit more, given this. and constantly trying to get better. So
Yeah.
then someone says, no, I really like that client that you had just recently where they text you after the session and say, hey, that was awesome. It's like, oh man, that weight off my shoulders. Like
It's
I
awesome.
delivered. I feel like
Yeah.
I felt good, and they just confirmed that they felt good in that experience too.
Yeah. It's really important because I don't necessarily always struggle with feeling like every session I did was bad, right?
Mhm.
It's not to something like that.
Yep.
But it's that you can be critical of like things you could have done better, right? So say I'll come out of a session and I'm like, man, something was a little awkward there or a little bit weird, but then they text you saying that was actually really meaningful. Like I
Mm.
learned something,
Yeah.
right? Or for me, in more cases than in person, it's something related to online. So something related to it, something coaching wise with me, and they go like, hey, like I'll say I'll respond to someone's check-in, right? And I give some feedback on something that happened to them or something that they were struggling with during that last week or two, and I can give them that feedback, and then they're like, yeah, I'm trying this new thing that you suggested, and it's like it's really well, it's doing really good, like it's working really well. It's those things that are really really good to hear, especially because I can't see them, right? And so I find that type of feedback is really important, and it happens more when I'm more focused as a coach, because I'll go into moments where I feel almost, maybe at that out of flow. I don't know if you ever,
Yeah.
think about how well you're working, like your work performance.
Yeah.
I am very critical on how good I do my own work, just
Yeah.
like with how many hours a day I work and how much I do that kind of stuff. But I find when I'm just kind of flowing through it, I get more of those messages and I do
Yeah.
better. And then when I'm out of it, I stress because I'm like, man, am I not giving my clients value? Are they just like, am I just like,
Yeah, it's like it's crazy. It's like they can almost feel the disconnect
yeah,
or the
yeah.
connect. Like you really feel it in that connect. All of a sudden it falls, eh? Um,
Hoping it doesn't.
I don't think it should. We'll
Actually,
find out.
The seat's nice though.
In terms of kind of as you're doing it and you're getting into it, when you started, did you what what things about like you personally do you think or do you feel like have carried over into like what you're doing now, or what things have changed about you personally, like
Since
kind of getting into training, working with clients, or even working out, like even the just the aspect of working out, like what do you feel like, how has that affected you outside of that, has it, or
oh,
has it affected you
so
at
it's
all?
like how has being a coach impacted just my life as a whole?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Or working out in
a,
general, I
a
mean those,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, on the job scale, I was offered to be the manager of the co-op or a department manager at a grocery store in Altona. When I was working that part-time job, they offered that position to me. But because I was set on becoming a coach, I turned it down and then moved to Calgary.
Mhm.
Right. So that's kind of one thing just in that area that changed, because that was a huge, I could have said, you know what, this is secure. Right. I went for something that wasn't. But the biggest thing that's changed, even just since becoming a coach in the last year, um, is really just my focus and where my head goes on a day-to-day basis. My head always turns something towards my work. Like I essentially like live work for good and for bad.
Mhm.
Because I'm running my own business, because I'm still in that phase of making it 100%, making it full time. Everything about me is entrepreneur mindset right now,
Mhm.
and it has been a transition of, uh, from an outside perspective of, oh, how's your little business doing, to, oh, like how's work going,
Oh, that's cool.
right? It's transitioned from that in the last year, and
Did you get, just to touch on that, did you get any resistance when you were kind of getting things going? Did you face some resistance in that?
which is what's crazy to me is from my family I got none, which was really impressive. I think both of my parents realized that uh, I had drive and they just wanted to support me more than anything else. So from the parental standpoint, they have been incredible, which has been honestly a blessing, because I think in the fitness, especially online coaching industry, there is often a lot of disconnect and a lot of, you should get a real job. But I didn't have that from them, which is amazing. Um, and my best friend has an Amazon business, and he actually employed me this whole year in his business to allow me to quit at co-op so that I could work more on my own business and
Cool.
actually focus. So my surroundings have been incredible to start a business, and it makes me feel all the more that I have to succeed, because I got something good. Because so many people make something out of nothing, and I didn't get nothing. So that means I should be doing something even better.
Yeah, but I will add though, like I think that's your perspective. I think there's a lot of people who would have that and feel like maybe they deserved that. They're like, hey, my parents should believe in me. My friend does have that business. Why wouldn't he hire?
It's a valid point.
You
Some
know?
people might actually,
I think you just I honestly think I agree with your perspective. I agree that those are like huge. That sounds like a great friend and
it's
great
crazy.
great parents.
Yeah.
But I think your perspective adds to it too. Like I think your perspective, like you could have come back from Calgary and had a much different attitude about starting out, and maybe you could say to yourself, hey, like, oh, what the heck? Nobody supports me. Like I don't have 1 million subscribers. Meanwhile, your friend's sitting there being like, dude, I'm helping you out here. And your parents are like, hey, we're not saying anything. You're like, oh yeah, it's not doing this. It's not doing that. I think that's credit to your perspective.
No, that's a great point. I definitely get ahead of myself.
Like
with my head, yeah.
I think I think you deserve to give yourself a little bit more credit.
Yeah, maybe that's the case.
Do you like, and through that experience, like kind of continue on that journey? Now are you still working with your friend a little bit with that?
I mean, it's less than 10 hours a week.
And then the majority, is it transition to that?
Everything's my business, yeah.
So then back into the personal thing, what does that look like in terms of when you're not training or you're not working and doing that? What is life like?
I'm figuring it out, to be honest. Because, there are days where I have horrible productivity. And then, in my head, if I spent half the morning doing shit all, I have to spend half the night doing something because I have to catch up somehow. And so right now is especially my struggle is I'm trying to figure out how to balance it because it is becoming full time. Like this January 1st, I'm pretty much 100%. Like our deal with my buddy Dylan, he was like, all right, new year, you're on your own. He's like, I don't want you to keep working for me forever because I want you to do your thing. Like, yeah, you're literally an incredible employee. Like he said this to me, something along these lines. I don't know if he's going to listen to this, so I'm going to make sure I don't exactly quote him, but like semi-quote him. So he was like, you're an absolutely incredible hard worker, super good employee, and I want you to work for me, but I don't want you to work for me.
Yeah.
Because my business Dylan wants you to work for me, but friend Dylan, it's like the devil and angel on the shoulders. It's like, I want you to work for me, but I do not want you to work for me. Because he's like, I don't want to take away from what you can do.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I know now in my head, I'm like, I got less than a month left. Like, I remember when I had 10 months to build a business. And now I've got like less than 30 days until I'm pretty much full time.
And how does that feel?
It feels crazy. It doesn't really, like, cause it feel like I'm doing it a lot already. But it feels weird and wonky, and there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of anxiety that goes with it. And that can bring me to a state of just like overworking because, I have to work all the time now. I have to work 24/7. I can't stop. What am I stopping for? I have to make this fully functioning. I can't go get another job. That can't happen, right? And so there's all these things in my head, all these wheels that turn all the time. So it's hard to give myself a break. The best way I find that I can get that has been through watching anime.
Cool.
I'm a big anime watcher. And tomorrow the new episode of Jujutsu Kaisen comes out, and I'm gonna be watching that. I can tell you. I don't know if you know anything about anime.
No, dude. I'm trying to think of one anime show that I think I've watched with my friends. I think it was a Pokemon. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, I was gonna say there's no way. I wasn't gonna judge you for it because I haven't seen Pokemon either.
I'm trying to think of what show. Attack on
Titan.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Got it.
You've seen that one?
like 1 or 2 episodes.
Okay,
yeah.
I actually haven't seen any. So
Man, I'm
you're
so
beating me
pumped
there.
that I got
That's so
that.
funny. That was impressive. But that's been an outlet for me.
Yeah.
I got into it actually in Calgary because I was by myself and I'd watch anime with my friends from home. So that was an outlet. And as well, like yesterday, for example, I went bowling with friends. So it's going out and doing things has been really good for me. Because I'm realizing if I'm just home all the time, I'm just gonna work. If I just stay home, it's unless someone texts me saying, "Hey, you want to play a game?" I'll probably just do something. I'll probably just go edit another video.
Yeah.
Probably just edit something and do it. Or I'll go, oh, cool, I'll just record a podcast. Or I'll edit some other stuff with clients. Or I'll do that because I'm like, well, that's a better use of my time, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm learning to make that more balanced so that I'm like, okay, I can be done now, so I can go play video games, not someone needing to tell me I can go play video games. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it has been, there's been some negatives, I guess you could say, onto my personal life, but I personally don't dislike them.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of working on something in my business constantly. Like I'll see someone who has a day off and they're gonna play games for half the day and then they're gonna go for a nap and then they're gonna do this. And for me, it's like if I have a day off, well, I'm just gonna work. It's not gonna be a day off because I'm gonna enjoy my day doing what I love,
Yeah.
right? And so that's why I love that fact. But for some people, it can be kind of annoying.
And it's for you. That's the biggest thing. Like I felt in that process of like, kind of having your own thing. Like you get the option to say, hey, it's 7 p.m. I didn't get a whole lot done today, but I got a few hours. I'm gonna get it done, or I can get it done. Or you wake up, you're like, tomorrow I'm getting up at 5 and I'm gonna work straight through till 2. And then you know what? I'm gonna take a nap.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. Just that option. Whether you do that or you don't do it, you have that option, which I think too in the relatability to like, I don't not want to go back to another job. It's like I work way more now than I did at like a job.
Exactly.
Like some days not as much, but a lot of days more.
Yeah.
And especially in the past, like just before COVID had hit, at that time I was training like 13 clients a day.
Yeah. That's
So it's
wild.
just back to back. And then then this is going to be, whether you want this or not, this is going to be my advice to you. But that almost COVID was almost perfect in a way of giving me like perspective. And that's going to be my thing to you, just to touch on, is like, don't lose that perspective you got from going to Calgary and that space that you provided yourself to continue to do that. Like that thing where you're talking about bowling. I made the mistake of eliminating that and almost like purposefully eliminating it, and it did not benefit me.
Why isn't there that saying of like disappear for 6 months and watch
Yeah.
how much you grow?
It kind of produced growth, like in a way, but it lost, it kind of wrecked some relationships, and I came across as an asshole because I'm like, oh, the only thing on my brain is this, and why isn't this not as important to you as it is to me? Like it should be just as important. And then there was even times where it was like family or friends were like, hey, like this is important. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, I got to do this. And meanwhile, I'm doing, like, at times, I'm sure you've experienced this, maybe going that 5 extra miles for a client or to maybe get a client. And then you realize that the client's like, oh, you could have got it to me on Monday. Or they're like, no, it's not for me or something like that. And you're like, Flip, I missed this.
I know what you mean.
And this person didn't even care the whole time. Like, where's my boundaries? So, I mean, it seems like you got a pretty good like perspective, but that's my mistake.
No, you're so right. Yeah. And I've gone in and out of wanting to do something along those lines, but every time I'm just like, I should just do something fun, right? So like I haven't gotten to the point where I don't let myself do those types of things, which I'm grateful for.
Good for you,
because like I don't want to lose relationships with my closest people, right?
Yeah.
With my family. One thing I was gonna say until I just kind of blew my mind, was do you have, unless you have something else you wanted to touch on this topic, I wanted to ask you about, do you have like a morning routine, or do you have something that you're doing that you do consistently in that facet?
Other than thinking about going back to bed, no. So
just because it's been something that I've been really, really conscious of lately, and so I'm curious on.
This is, I'll just be honest with my morning routine. So usually I wake up about anywhere between 5:15 and 5:30 at the latest. And first clients here at 6, so I got to be here. So then I turn to my side.
How far away do you live from?
I live like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just down the road and a little ways. And then I get up and I turn sideways in my bed and I walk over to my dog, who's usually like, can you leave me alone? And then I pet her a little bit and go to the shower because that wakes me up. And then I kind of get ready, say goodbye, hop into my car and just kind of zombie it here. By the time I get here, I'm a little more awake. And then I walk to the fridge downstairs and I crack an energy drink and I fire this sucker up. And then that's the morning routine. One thing I did do for a while that I need to get back to doing, but it's actually, I don't know if there's anybody listening in the States, that your access to different products is much substantially better. One thing I did do is I was drinking electrolytes every morning
Okay.
in like a full shaker cup of water, and it was massive. Like the difference I felt, and it could have been placebo. I did it for about a month and a half before my electrolytes ran out, and the price like doubled on them.
Oh.
And I was like you go to American Amazon or anything like that, and they just have so many options.
Gouged.
You go to Canada, and it's like you can get those options, but it's like double the price.
Yep. Yeah, that's called my buddy's Amazon business, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I wonder if he sells it. No, he would.
Yeah.
He wouldn't. He's not in that field, but
Yeah, that's usually my morning routine. Yeah, that's usually it. Yeah, it could probably be improved, but that's how I do it.
I mean, I think that one thing that you absolutely have going for you with that is the fact that you go straight to work.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, I've struggled with starting work in the morning because I have had the absolute worst morning habit built up over the last like 8 years, is that from grade 4 to like 1 year out of high school, I had to watch at least an hour of something before I could do anything.
You just had to get that
I had to sit for an hour and just be with myself for an hour before I would let myself do anything. And that has been the absolute bane of my existence, starting and doing my own thing.
Yeah.
Because I can start my work whenever I want. I don't have to be at work at 8. So I don't have to do the math in my head being like, okay, so I have to get up at 6 and then I can chill from like 6:15 to 7:15 and then I can get ready and then go. It's like, no, I can wake up whenever the heck I want and I can start work whenever I want. Meaning that chill hour can become as much as it needs to be.
Yeah.
Which is not a good thing.
Yeah. And it's like, and I can relate to that too. That more so happens still kind of in the middle of the day. I'm so grateful, actually. Like, I think every podcast I mention it, but I am actually super grateful for Zach here, because things like
keep you
and almost that, like him saying, hey, when are we doing this, or when are we doing that? It's like my brain will think about it and think about it and think about it and be like, with certain things, how can I get that perfect? How can I do this? How can I do this? When all of a sudden, if I schedule a client at that 6 a.m. spot, I know I have to be like that feeling of, you have to be here. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to get there. Where I'm not so good at when I have that space. So like I usually leave myself a gap in the afternoon, get a workout done, run some errands, do more of the office stuff like that. Goof off with Zach a little bit. And then getting back into that first client, my brain is like, I was working on that before. In the back of my brain, I'm like, I could almost rather be doing that. I'm like, no. You got a client here. Go. Where that morning, it's like, just get here and go.
Exactly.
And just hammer back to back a few clients. Because by the end of it, I'm just not even thinking about anything else. Yeah.
Jinx.
Yeah, there we go.
Wow. That was wild.
Yeah.
No, I totally get what you're saying though. When you start thinking about the options, you almost start doing less.
Yes.
Because it's always better when you're focusing on one thing. It's like if you have sessions back to back, it's like cool, session to session to session.
Yeah.
There's no other option. So you just do it and then you do it well. Whereas when okay, I'm doing this, but hey, that thing could be done. And then, that thing could be done.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be doing that now? Should I be doing that now? Or should I just focus on the thing I'm already doing now?
Yeah.
And then now you're not working because
you're not doing anything.
You're debating on what to do.
Yeah.
And so I totally get that. And one thing that I've done to help fix my morning issue is I'm on 2 days in a row of it now, so it's very new.
Yeah.
Is I get up and I'm working within 3 minutes.
Good for you. That's awesome.
And I watched this video about it because I've gone from doing that in the past, and that in the past when I did that, it never worked because I thought it was stupid. I thought I would just burn out and crash from it. But I watched this video of this guy. I have no idea. I can't shout him out. I don't remember. But
maybe he's watching this.
Maybe, that'd be crazy. That'd be wild. But it was this hybrid of a morning routine and just working.
Okay.
Because he said, I did the big CEO, you get up, you work, you do it 12 hours, 15 hours, and then you go to sleep. And he's like, I just burnt out. And he's like, then I did the opposite of it, which is having like a 3-hour morning routine, but then I just had no productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, it's a hybrid that I've done now, and this is what I'm trying, is you wake up, and for me, he said you wake up and start work like instantly. Mm-hmm. Like almost like work in bed. Not literally, but like you get out, the first thing you do, you go to the washroom, then you're working. For me, I get up, I go to the washroom, I start my coffee, and then I make my coffee, go sit at the desk, and it's probably 10 after, and I woke up at 7 this morning. It's probably 10 after 7 when I started working, right? So within 10 minutes, I didn't touch my phone, right? My phone stayed on my bedside. and then I went straight to work. And then I do about 2 hours straight, and I prep the night before what you're gonna do because you're not gonna think about it in the morning.
It's tough. Yeah.
You're not gonna decide to figure it out. You're gonna have to have it laid in front of you. And then after 2 hours, you do your morning routine.
Oh, cool. That's pretty sweet. Like
Yeah.
um, yeah. I kind of like that. Like
It's
in terms of,
unique.
and there's something about mornings too. Like there's definitely evening creativity, but there's something about morning productivity. It's like your brain isn't up enough that you can like think of new ideas very well, but it's up
Just
enough
hammer out
that
the
you
shit.
can. It's just like
Yeah.
I can problem solve super well right
Yeah.
now, and you're just kind of rolling. So that's cool.
So what he learned, and I don't know how much actual information there is or data about the quote unquote like flow state.
Yep.
But conceptually, that's what you want to be in when you're working. And he said, and the reason that he had made this video is because the idea was to find the best flow. And he said that a morning routine is supposed to kind of get you into a flow state. But when you actually wake up, you're the closest to a flow state that you can be in because you were asleep, because there isn't a bombardment of thoughts in your head. You can just kind of coast into the thing you decide to do in the beginning.
You're not overstimulated
Right?
at that point.
And so he said, if you do an over exuberant morning routine, well, you're putting yourself out of that flow state by doing so much. And then you're allowing yourself all these thoughts to come in. Because if you just start working right away, and I've noticed this exactly to a T for the first 2 days, I start work and I just go. There's no other thoughts. There's no other issues. It's like, cool, this is just what I got to do. And yeah, you're tired, but you're just crushing through it. And you just focus, and there's no other thoughts. There's no anything. And then all of a sudden it's 9 o'clock and you're like, wait, I just worked for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And you probably didn't do something overly spectacular, but you just did that work
You
that you
chipped
needed
away.
to do. And you did it. And you're like, cool, now it's time to go make some breakfast, do my morning routine. And now it's 10 o'clock and now you're going back to work and you feel good again. And it's just really, really unique because it got me into a flow state to start the day. And I didn't feel like I needed that. And this is why, going back to what my big problem was, which was just needing to do something on like my phone for an hour, which killed every bit of productivity I would have. And I feel like I'm slowly replacing that. And so I just wanted to see how that morning routine was because...
Yeah, I really like that, and there's nothing that kills creativity or productivity like the phone. I can vouch for that. One thing I did pick up too is that I don't know if you're similar to this, but the one mistake I made, I was like I would always try and like pick up a bunch of things, or like I would get a process, like I heard this person did this process, and I would try to implement the entire process.
Yeah,
I've
done that
to go
times.
through it. And then as I've kind of gone through like different things, I'm like, oh no, you don't need to do their whole thing, Pelly. Like take a step back. What worked for you? What could you keep doing? What can you hold on to? And what can you leave?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, like you don't have to do this whole thing. And it seems like you're kind of finding that too. Like of like, oh, I seem to be getting a good positive result out of this. Where in 3 months from now, you might all of a sudden find like, hey, if I give myself 10 minutes, that seems to be a sweet spot for me. And then actually I heard this person added this into their morning routine. I think I can implement that. And then you grab pieces where I always made the mistake of like, I have to be just like this.
Oh,
this
don't
guy
worry.
or
I
this
did
girl.
that a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was at, oh man, it drove me nuts. Even with the working out, like programs and stuff like that. Like I would do a program and I'd be like, I have to do it identical. And I'd be doing an exercise. I'm like, this feels like garbage. Like I feel like I could be doing something that I feel better than this. I'm like, no, this is what this guy did. So I'm sticking to it. And then maybe there was some benefit there. I thought the camera just turned off there for a second. We're good.
I heard the click too.
Maybe there was some benefit there, but just sticking to something. But there's also like the freedom of being like, hey, I'm not in jail, like, or in school. I can adjust this.
Exactly. You have that freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, I noticed one thing that I plan on implementing as I get more consistent with my new routine is, I tried to implement this a long time ago, and because I just wasn't at the point, and this is to what you were saying about, I had to do it exactly. So there's this person that I follow who does this thing. It's called a 10 before 10.
Okay.
So it's 10 things to move yourself in the right direction to start your day before 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him, it was workout. And that's like full workout, like do your full training routine workout. You have to read. It was read a certain amount. It was affirmations. It was 4 different things in his business. And then it was whatever 3 things were left.
Yeah.
That got it to 10 things.
Yeah.
But it was these 10 things that you do before 10 a.m. that will make you successful. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to do it. I didn't do it. I quote unquote was doing it for maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I didn't do it once.
Yeah, it's like, and which makes you, I think for a lot of people, and I think this is relatable to fitness, it makes you give up on all of it a lot of times. It's like, I can't do this. I'm not going to be this guy. And you know what? It probably works really well. Like if you can do it, it probably works really well.
Yeah.
But it's like, can you do it more? Can you do some of it?
Can you do 3 of those things? If you're doing 0 of those 10 things right now, and you do 3, and you do 1, right? Say one of it's to read 10 pages, one of the things.
Yep.
If you just say, cool, I'm not going to read 10 pages, this. I'm just going to read 10 pages.
Yeah.
Well,
And maybe
then-
it's out of an easy to read book.
Yeah.
Like just something basic.
Some children's book.
Just Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
In all honesty, it probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
I know, there's worse things on social media than Dr.
Yeah.
Seuss.
I like the metaphor. I think I'm not going to do it justice, but it's like the idea of the statue of David started off as a full block, and it wasn't carved in a day. It wasn't whatever. It was chipped away over time.
Yeah.
And eventually it became what it is. And it's that concept of like, hey, this doesn't all have to happen day one. You're going to start to see the picture you're trying to create over time, and you're going to go through that process differently.
And like one thing to realize with that too is that by you doing something for 3 days straight, you're doing better than most people, because most people aren't starting anything. And so if you say you're going to do 2 different things that you think about doing, and you just start doing it and you just keep doing it in like really small quantity, even if you limit yourself, and this is what I've found is really useful for some of my clients even, is if you limit what they're going to do, even if they say they can do more.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I'm like, what do you want to do? And they're like, I think I can, for example, how many days a week can you train?
Yeah.
It's like, how many days a week can you realistically train? They're like, I can realistically train 6 days a week. Yeah. And they have never started going to the gym. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to start you off on 3.
Yeah, I've been there before, and they're like, why?
You're like, what do you mean 3? I'm like, you have to prove to me you can do this.
Yeah.
And then they crush 3 because you limited them.
Yeah.
They wanted to do more. If you gave them 6, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
They'd fall off. But you forced them to go down. So now they're like, okay, wait. And this is another thing that I've had to do with a client too. Is it's like they weren't doing the workouts. I gave them a program. They were following it, and then they stopped following it. So I removed the workouts they weren't doing. I didn't tell them. And they're like, why isn't this working? I'm like, you haven't been doing it. They're like, wait, why? I'm like, you have to do the workouts that I have for you now, and then I'll give you those other workouts back.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the determination that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden, oh, I had it, but I skipped it. But now it's, no, you lost it. Like you lost it. You just didn't do it. And now you can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So now the determination comes back. So it's like, if you just start doing something and you do something a little bit, it's worthwhile, and most people aren't doing anything. So
it's funny we're even talking about this, because that's the video that Zach was helping me out, like getting perspective on and trying to develop a video that made sense to people, but that didn't just make sense in my head. It was about that concept. It was basically like we loaded up a bar with a bunch of weight, and the idea was, hey, this weight on the bar is the weight you're trying to lose. If you go and try and lift this bar up, you're not going to get very far. You might take a couple steps, but eventually you're going to have to put it down pretty quickly.
it's pretty heavy.
Yeah. Instead, why don't you take one plate at a time, put one plate away at a time, and that represents kind of the journey you're on. Not only does that make the process more tangible and more doable, but it also builds momentum in the direction of, you could carry that small weight that distance. So the next one's going to be the exact same, and you can do it already. Where if you try and take on that big lump sum right away, or someone lets you take on that big lump sum and you get kind of smacked with it, you fall down and you're like, well, I'm never going to do that. That bar is way too heavy.
It's like, I had a friend who it's like another one of my best friends, really close guys. And I always told him, you should come to the gym. He's like, no, I hate the gym. I never want to go to the gym. And then now, guess what? He's in the gym now. He's got a membership. I was squatting. We were both doing a leg day together, and I was squatting 235 pounds. And he was looking at it. He's like, is it that heavy? Like, what does it feel like? I'm like, go stand under it.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, I don't think I can lift the bar up. I'm like, just lift the bar up. Don't take a step back.
Yeah.
Just lift the bar up. And he lifts it up. He's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. So it's like, you can compare that to if you're starting your fitness journey and you want to lose 50 pounds and you visualize that as, I want to lose 50 pounds. You're lifting that whole bar up, and you're like, holy shit, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
But you take 2 plates off, and maybe you put on like 75 pounds. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, that first 5 pounds doesn't look too bad.
Yeah.
Because now you're looking at it from 5 pounds, not 50. But then you lose 5 pounds. Okay, do you want to do this a few more times? I can do that a couple more times. And now you're down 30 pounds. And now you've lost more than there is left. So now even looking at 20 pounds doesn't look like that much.
And you're in that process, and I think that is undervalued in my experience, like in injury or in business mistakes and stuff like that. There is something to success that matters a lot. In terms of like when you succeed, you in a journey that sticks with you. If you were to lose 50 pounds all at once, you skip that whole step that has value in so many, at least to me, has value in so many other areas of your life.
Isn't it like the surgery that it's like kind of just cheating your way through it? If you're so fat, you're so overweight. I guess fat. You're not supposed to use the word fat.
Yeah, you're good here. You're good here. Trust me, there's way worse things that have been said in this room.
Yeah, don't worry. I said that as a joke. Don't worry. But like, there's a surgery to get the fat removed surgically. Like you're just. I think there was a statistic I saw that it's like most people gain that fat. They literally got surgically removed back.
Yeah. Yeah, and you skip the journey. So then you don't like. I think there's something valuable to be said about 100%. your training experience, like developing like into where you are now, where somebody is going to come along the lines and have an experience, maybe not identical but similar, and you get to offer that person your experience and say, hey, you know what, you could stay home and do this over webcam or whatever. You could do that. My experience was I got a ton of value for maybe spending a little bit more money, but getting this experience. And you get to offer that to someone.
Yeah.
If you were to skip all of that and you were to skip this journey, you don't get that anymore.
You lose
and it can never be taken. That experience can never be taken away from you. You can never go buy it. No one else can go buy it. It's yours. And you get to offer it to somebody else, which I think holds so much power that in that frustration and that, laying in bed at night, not being where you want to be and being frustrated, you lose sight of the value of that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, knowledge is the greatest thing that you can have. It's like to learn more. It's funny how I learned after high school that learning is like key and being able to adapt and just constantly being able to just grow from something. And so I don't take a loss as such a big negative anymore because it's part of the journey, right? The wins get treated the same as the losses now.
Yeah.
Because it's the same type of experience. I mean, I found I realistically learn more from a loss than a win, right? Because you can take and you can come back stronger. If you win, you just did it wrong enough to do it right.
Yeah, it just reafirms what you already knew.
Exactly, right?
So yeah, that's right. I do know that. Yeah,
exactly, which is you need that.
Yeah,
you definitely you need that too. You need that too.
Yeah, there's some days where you're like, I could use a couple more wins on this one. Yeah.
So yeah, always. But they're both valuable, right?
Yeah.
Getting the wins and the losses. So it's.
What would you like in terms of wins and losses? More so focusing on wins. What in your business and what you're trying to do? You're coming up on the new year. You're mentioning that, hey, this is go time for you. What do you, for business wise and personal wise, what do you kind of want to see from yourself? I'm curious.
In 2024?
Yeah, like what does that look like for you? Like what does that build and that stress and all that? What do you see that producing for you?
Well, I prefer to have a absolutely ridiculous goal rather than a goal that's like timid.
Yeah, let's hear it, man.
Like for me personally, like I actually have all of my goals for 2024 on my phone background. I'll show you in a second here. It's all like right there. Like that's just
that's cool, man.
Everything on there.
That is really cool.
So I have a couple things. I'll run through them.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is I'll start business wise. Business wise, I would like to bring in at the very minimum 10 grand in 1 month.
Nice.
That's what I want to hit at least in 1 month in 2024.
Yeah.
My full goal is to hit 100 grand next year. Purely because, and it's not because I want this exuberant lifestyle. It's because I want to change more lives. And a visual goal for that is income, is also clients. Because if I'm making 100 grand in a year, I probably had to hire someone. Meaning I probably didn't make 100 grand profit, right? But I had to hire someone. Like I ideally would like to hire someone to do video next year. I'd like to hire someone to do like outreach for certain things for me next year. I'd like to hire maybe like a vice coach.
Yeah,
for me, like an assistant coach for me.
It means growth.
Exactly.
Like that 100,000 means business growth.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And it's a good visualization because it's a great means of tracking progress.
Yeah.
How much is coming in.
Yep.
Right. And that's what I want to see. I also on the business side would like to continue, and I haven't set specific goals, but for my podcast to grow next year, I'd like to take that more seriously. I know I've been on my own podcast, been on a bit of a hiatus, just because other things had came up, and that's just another word for excuses that I just didn't end up making an episode. For what 1 week of actually being busy turned into cool. I just forgot to do it, essentially.
Yeah.
And then for me, I'd like to compete in bodybuilding.
Oh, cool. That's sweet.
I'm setting June of 2025 of when I'm going to compete
Nice.
in the WNBF, which is the Winnipeg National Competition.
Is that, do you know what category you'd go in? Like,
well,
physique,
realistically, it would be like a physique amateur competition. They were very vague on their website, and
Okay.
it seems very generalized. And you can enter into a couple categories, and then there's the overall.
There's nothing worse. I don't know if you guys want to go research stuff. There is no website worse
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
than like bodybuilding like event websites. Like one, it looks like someone in 2005 built it. And two, you try and navigate through that thing and you're like, this doesn't even take me to where I want to. Like I don't know what to do. So I can understand that experience is interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because the Winnipeg National Bodybuilding Competition, or WNBF Federation, has a better website than the Olympia. The Olympia website, which is like, if you don't know bodybuilding, is the peak. If you're in the Olympia, the Mr. Olympia, if you're competing there, you're one of the best bodybuilding competitors in the world.
Yeah.
And they have a worse website than the Winnipeg National whatever. And when you look at...
Which is probably not a compliment to the Winnipeg one. It's more of an insult to the Olympia. Yeah.
And when you look at that, when you look at how serious a Winnipeg competition is, it's essentially, if you go to the Olympia is people who will devote their entire life to training, and their entire job is becoming big and optimizing their body. Something like a Winnipeg competition is, I work at Wendy's and I'm getting skinny on the side and gonna go stand on a stage.
Yeah.
It is not even on the same like talking point as a actual professional bodybuilding competition.
Did you watch the Olympia this year?
I did a little bit. I didn't pay for it, but
how was the video and audio this year? Because it's notoriously like the worst thing either. I'm like, there's YouTubers with a smaller budget than you have, and you can't seem to manage this thing.
Realistically, I only saw, because I didn't watch it live, I only saw some recaps of it.
Okay.
And so I only heard very minimal, but video was okay.
Okay.
And audio, was a little, it was faulty. It was just awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to your goal. Sorry.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I went off in a tangent.
I sidetracked too. But a competition is something I'm going to focus on. And that's one of the reasons I hired a coach. It's because I want to take 2024 seriously with my personal goals, because I felt like it was lacking. Right.
Yeah. And that takes, I do the same thing. I hire someone to do all my stuff too. Because I'm like, hey, I'm doing other people's things. I don't want to sit here and worry about mine. And not only that, but I know I don't know all the options, but I know a lot of options out there. And I don't want to be the one to stand in the grocery store and have to pick my own snacks, because I'm going to be standing there all day. So how about you pick my bicep curls? You pick my squat. You do this. I don't want to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm loving it so far.
Yeah. Is it bodybuilding focused at this point?
So right now, one struggle that I had on my own was I could never commit to a cut or bulk for a long period of time. And so I always wanted to know what I looked like cut. And so I told him, I'm like, I want to cut. But I also want to compete. So it makes no sense to start by cutting. But we started with the cut. We started the 5-week cut. I'm on my last week of it right now. And we essentially did it purely to see how I can commit to something, because I would go down for 2 weeks and then I'd be like, wow, I feel there's this pizza party coming up. I don't care about cutting that much. I'm not that serious about it. And then I'd be like, okay, cool. Well, I've got lean enough for now. I'm going to bulk now. And then I'd be like, oh, wow, I feel fat. And then I'd cut again. And it was this endless loop. And I'm like, I need someone to just tell me what I'm doing so I can have to commit. And now I commit. And now I pushed past that point I'd never been before. Yeah. So now I actually know what I can do. I know what it's like. So
good for you, man.
So that's good in its own right. Another goal that I have for 2024 is I want to blow up and hit 100K on Instagram next year.
Cool. That's sweet, man. Good for you.
It's funny saying it almost, because I'm at 1,800 right now.
Hey, that's good.
It doesn't take much to just, eventually the algorithm just says, okay, you're going to go to everyone now.
Yeah.
And I've seen countless people that I followed when they were at 1,600. Within 2 months, they're at 150.
which can also be discouraging sometimes.
Well, yeah, because on my end, it was absolutely horribly discouraging because I remember the first guy I followed him when he was at like 800 followers. This guy's name was like Kov Fit, and he posted these motivational videos, and something blew up, and they kept blowing up, and I'd see every single one of his posts, and I'd constantly check his page to see how much he grew because I felt a little bit of envy towards it, and every single time I checked his page, it was like 10,000 more followers.
Wow.
And it was because it was probably 5 videos in a row, over 1 million views, and then it was 800,000, 500,000. But see, the problem with that is, though, and this is why I don't want to get too carried away on that concept, is because that doesn't last forever.
No.
That stops. So that guy, I checked up on him recently because I just thought of him because I remember being so hung up on him.
Yeah.
He's like done. He's gone, pretty much. He posts a little bit on YouTube, but he posts almost nothing on Instagram, even though he has like 110,000 followers, because the algorithm just went, beep, and now he gets like 10,000 views on a video.
His content just hasn't adjusted to stay relevant.
Well, so what happened was, and this is why I'm gonna focus on, even though I'm setting myself a big goal for number, I know that my goal realistically is if I hit that, it's gonna be through my natural generation of doing stuff I enjoy. Because what's gonna happen is one thing, if I were to hit 100K, one thing that's gonna happen is something that I do is gonna blow up. One concept that I do, one type of or style of video that I make will blow up, and that style of video will go viral. That style of video. So what I'll do to continue that growth is to keep making that style of video. But what happens is when you make that style of video that blows up, your personality
has to be that.
Then if it doesn't change, then you become nothing.
Yeah.
So what has to happen is I have to have something that is going to be so valuable that's going to make people stay after something like that happens. So I'm more focused on actual generation of real connections with people and people who actually care about me and my content. So that's why I don't really create much for the type of content that made this other guy go viral. Because this other guy made some just very relatable, nothing kind of post that had this certain text that was super kind of depressing that a bunch of people could relate to because it was depressing.
Yeah.
And it was fitness related depressing. So it was like, you go to the gym because of X thing happening. And it's like the same clip he'd use with a different text. And it would go viral every time because the quote would resonate with so many people.
And he just, I could see that.
And you reuse that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do another one of those because it got me 500,000 views. Yeah. Whereas for me, I want to create things that are giving so much value that people are like, holy shit, I need to follow this guy.
Yeah.
Rather than it being, I relate to that. So that's why the longevity with what I'm trying to do will hopefully stay rather than he just fell off and there was nothing holding him to that website anymore because the only thing that kept him posting was the dopamine from how many views it got. So I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for
and
a different type.
I think that develops a community and it develops people who are interested in, they're connected to you. So then when you do say, hey, like you transition the thing of saying, hey, you know what, like this is who I am. This is also what I offer. And they like you and they like what your perspectives are, or some of them at least, or what the value you're giving them. They're like, oh, I trust this guy.
Yeah.
I can go over here. Where if it's surface level, and I've seen it before. Like I don't have that many followers, but a decent amount of them have converted to clients, and I've made money on it. Where I've seen people have thousands of followers before, and they're doing a good job growing, but nobody will buy anything from them because there's no reason to. I've even heard the story. I don't know if you've heard it about the OnlyFans girl.
There's a lot of OnlyFans girls.
Yeah. This is the famous story of her. It's like a spooky Halloween story. Basically she had I think it was her Instagram, and she had a ton of followers, all that stuff, and she started selling t-shirts, and she bought a ton of t-shirts to sell.
Oh no.
And let's say she had 1 million followers.
Yeah.
She hardly sold any. It was something like 10 t-shirts or something like that. But you think about the content she's offering, likely, do whatever you want, but this is the content you're offering. Let's just probably face it. It's probably a lot of like dudes. No dude is going to buy your t-shirt. That's not why they're here. You haven't presented yourself as someone who's going to be providing them a valuable t-shirt.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
She did not know her market.
Yeah. So you think about it, and like some people will go through this, or they'll try and get that viral clip, and then there's no connection to their audience, and they have 100,000 followers, but they're not converting on anything.
Yeah.
They're bringing no value. People aren't, they're not engaging. They're not connected to that community. And I think that gets missed where there's someone who has 10,000 followers who's converting on, let's say, a large percentage of that. who's
5%.
yeah,
On like
who's
10, imagine you have 10,000 followers and you convert like 2% of them.
massive.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't, depending on how much what your offer sells for,
yeah,
that might be literally more than your full-time income.
exactly.
2% of 10,000 people.
So I think I think your perspective in terms of like, hey, I'm gonna get there, but I'm gonna get there being who I am.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in different forms of content or different ways of presenting it, but it's gonna be you. I think that's valuable. I don't think that's worth giving up either. Let's say you don't get there. I don't even think that's worth giving up because you've stepped into to a box that doesn't represent you, and now you have to live in that box. And if you want to step out of that box, you lose everything that's in it as well, which that would be a miserable place to be trapped in.
No, it wouldn't be worth it.
You may as well be working at Co-op then.
Literally, yeah.
No offense to Co-op.
Nah,
I don't want to sit
Co-op
here and groceries are too expensive.
The only hurts me every time.
Yeah.
No, because you know, I think that if I set the goal for myself, and I'm not trying to project this, but say for example, if my goal is to hit 100K followers at the end of 2024, and say by the end of 2024, I'm at 6,000.
Mm-hmm.
If I did that, being 100% myself, that's not even in the closest thing to a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Because that means that doing the same content and evolved content that I'm doing now, rather than just trying to go to some weird viral thing, I grew that much. Whereas I tried to do that this year, I didn't really grow. I stayed the same. Actually, technically, in the last year, lost 100 followers. But that's just. But I don't care about that.
It was just your hands, man.
Exactly. It's just my yeah.
Just kidding.
No, well, and that concept doesn't bother me because, I don't. It hasn't affected. It doesn't like if I don't get any less likes on things because I lost 100 followers. That doesn't bother me.
There's no money.
They didn't want
leaving
me,
your bank account.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. Naturally, I'd like it to go up, not down. But from where I'm at now, I know that I gained a lot of followers over for the first 2 years of my account, doing things like following completely random people just to try to get more followers. Before I was a trainer, before I thought I was even going to be a trainer, because I started my fitness account in 2020 before I was planning on getting my certification.
So some of them might have dropped off from that process. Yeah.
Right. And obviously I got way more interaction at 200, 300 followers now than 1,800.
Yeah, which is the worst almost. Hey, like the amount of spam accounts too. Like you post reels and stuff like that. The amount of spam accounts that all of a sudden will follow you from a reel that does have
Forex
decent
trading accounts.
Yeah, or you like someone's post. Let's say Joe Rogan, you were talking about earlier. You like one of his posts, and you got like 4 new friends, and you're like, they're all like trying to sell you something.
It's wild,
and you're like, I should never like that again.
I wonder what level that converts on, because I don't
of those guys.
Yeah,
I can't see it doing well.
I get anytime I post. If I post, I'm going to get a couple people in my inbox talking to me about, and I don't know, you probably get this too. All about fitness and being like, hey, how long have you been coaching? Like I'll get a request and it's like, hey, how long have you been coaching for? And in the beginning I would respond to these and I'd be like, well, I've been a coach for like 8 months at the time. Yeah. And they're like, I will give you 50 clients the next 30 days or you don't pay.
Yeah.
Except it'll be like this 7-paragraph long essay. And I'm like, first of all, not reading that. Yeah. In the beginning I cared because I thought it was something serious, but I've learned to be like, cool. If someone sends me a message that and they don't have like a mutual friend essentially with me, I just don't give it the light of day because it's not real. It's not something that turns into something.
No, it's not. That's social media is wild with that.
It is, Facebook's actually way better with that because Facebook you can't friend request people that you don't have mutuals with.
Oh yeah.
Right? So it's like I'll friend request people on Facebook, but all of a sudden it'll recommend me someone that doesn't have any mutuals and I'll click add friend because I expand my network naturally.
Yeah.
And it says, oops, I don't think you know this person.
Really? So I didn't actually even know this was a thing.
So you can't friend request someone who you have no mutuals with.
So if you wanted to, let's say you wanted to get friends with Shaq,
you'd
have to link enough people together.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's awesome.
Exactly.
I didn't know that was a thing, actually.
Yeah, no, it just says, we don't think you know this person. You should get more mutual friends before you add this person.
Wow, that's pretty good. So then people can't just spam accounts. Wow, I didn't know that was a thing.
Facebook's way better at it than
Instagram,
even though they're technically the same.
Yeah, and Facebook, the majority, like the feed is like for me is pretty brutal. But what they've done really well.
Brutal how? Like brutal.
Like just like I'm like I don't care whatever's on here. I'm like someone lost.
I think Facebook sucks.
It's just like I lost my one mitten the other day. Has anybody seen it? And you're like, I don't
Wait,
know.
is that from someone you follow or like?
No, I'm just
That
using it as an
you're getting
example.
okay, yeah,
But it's like
okay.
stuff like that where
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
no
completely
one gives a
irrelevant. Yeah.
shit. And or it's someone like just writing a thing angrily, like, and then it's some
That is so
post.
common. That is so common.
It's just like upset.
Yeah,
And I'm
someone
like,
that I follow just did. They posted their rant with Bell on Facebook.
yeah, it's shit like that.
It
And you're like, who are
completely-
you talking to?
Yeah, you like
Um,
who did you need? Who needed to know about this?
Yeah, but they do communities, like the community
Oh, so
aspect, unbelievably well. I haven't taken advantage of it, but I've been a part of a few and stuff like that. And I'm like, this system that they're using works so good.
I'm in a online fitness coach mentorship business. I'm a part of like an academy when it comes to the business side of online coaching, and that comes with a academy that has a private Facebook group. And that private Facebook group, I don't know, like you said, a ton, but I know on average Facebook groups get. It's very easy to find a dead Facebook group. Most Facebook groups are dead. Most Facebook groups, even if they're half alive, are only maybe like a post a day,
Yeah,
maybe 2 posts a day. This Facebook group that I'm in, the people that I am a client for, they have made and fostered such an incredible community that any post you make will get direct responses from probably 15 people, and some of them are employed by this academy and some aren't because
which
some
stimulates conversation.
exactly.
Though, too.
And there's probably 15 to 30 posts in it a day
Wow.
from all online coaches. Like everything I could just scroll for an hour and I would get like 20 online coach problems that these people are having, and then all the comments would be the solutions.
Oh,
Right? It's
cool.
like this person would be like, "Hey, this client was doing this and this person was falling off on this way. How should I go about doing this?" And then there'll be responses from and every single coach is making over like 15K a month.
Mhm.
And they're all successful coaches, and part of their job that they've done is they help other people now.
Oh, cool.
Right? And so I can go and send a message, be like, "Hey, I'm struggling with my content," and they actually have a thing. Every Monday, there's something called they do content audits. So you give them your Instagram username, and they'll go through live all of your content, or like maybe 5, 10, 15 posts, and they'll be like, "This is shit. I see no engagement from this because there's no hook. There's nothing good about it."
Yeah.
And they will rip you to shreds because the main people in this academy are like hyper successful.
Yeah.
And
They want you to, like, if you're asking them a question, they're
Yeah.
like, hey, I want, just like you want that client to do
exactly
their workout.
They do the same thing, and then it really gave me an eye-opening experience because when I was slacking with them, they're like, "Bro, you're doing the same thing you don't want your clients to do. You're doing it with us.
Yeah.
You're just as bad as your clients who don't do it."
Yeah.
I'm like, shit. I'm like, I'm just as bad as my bad clients. Like getting told that is wild. That's because you're not doing the stuff in your business that you should be doing. You're doing the same thing that your bad clients are doing.
That's sweet. That's cool that you have that. And it's a really good idea on their part to have a resource like that for people, because yeah, it brings value, and it brings I mean, I'm sure for them it brings some sort of business as well. Like it's a good funnel, I'm sure too.
They have a successful business.
Yeah, and then too, like you're sitting on a podcast telling me about the benefit you're getting from it, which how many people are going to hear it and be like, different questions about it.
Like they have 1,300 active clients in their academy.
And this podcast has millions of listeners.
Oh yeah. I
on
know.
multiple platforms.
So it's like probably 10 mil plus.
I think we're back and rolling. Sorry that the video cut out there. You guys hopefully still have the audio, so that's good. So basically, we're just gonna close this thing out with Sam.
100%.
And Sam, a few things we want to do, or I like to do on this podcast.
You know, it's funny. I actually intentionally did not watch the end of, because part of me was thinking, I was like, no, should I see if there's something that I should prepare for?
Yeah.
I didn't. So I have no idea what's coming.
Good.
Yeah.
So let's just make sure you're on that camera now that I've touched everything. First one is, your goals that we can look forward to. Quickly run us through those one more time.
All right. So biggest things is my personal side. I really want to commit to a competition June of 2025. That should be Winnipeg National Bodybuilding Competition. That's what I want to commit to. Business wise, I would love to hit a 10K month in 2024, as well as shoot for a total of 100K through the whole year, as well as hiring 1 to 2 people to help me with my business.
Awesome, man.
And then maybe social media wise would be to really take the next step and grow my social media. And the way I'm visualizing that is by the idea of 100K followers being nothing more than a number and
reference number
being fully achievable.
Cool, man. And then, okay, the final thing is, I love that. I want to compliment you on kind of where you're at. You haven't been around that many years in life, in the grand scheme of things, but it seems like you're doing a lot. You're trying to do a lot, and you're trying to do it in a way that's true to you. And I think that deserves a lot of credit, from my perspective, at least. And I encourage you to keep doing it, whatever way it looks like, whatever these goals kind of morph into and whatever they become, whether they're exactly what they are or they turn into something else. From my perspective, I want to be the person to say, hey, go do it because you can do it.
100%.
Because, yeah, you're motivating for me. You know, I'm older than you, but I look at what you're doing and it's inspiring because it's like, this guy is doing this. He's stepping out on a limb. There's resistance in that process, but he's doing it anyways, and he's trying. And I think that deserves credit. And I want you to shout out where people can find you. I'll tag the places below, podcast,
100%.
all that stuff.
Yeah. All right. So my Instagram, you can follow me, is Sam_fitness, 2 M's and 2 I's.
Right on.
It's fun to remember, but that's my Instagram. That's where you'll find everything by me. And then my podcast is called the Stay Superior Podcast.
Cool.
And you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on Instagram as well, under the same name.
Cool. Well, awesome. It's great to have you here, Sam. I hope you guys all enjoyed this, despite a little bit of video issues. Hopefully most of the podcast is on here, and hopefully it looks really good for you guys. If you like this podcast and you think someone else can benefit from it, go share it with somebody. Go let them experience it. And if you like the stuff that Sam's talking about and you like who he is, make sure you guys go follow him, or at the very least check out his stuff. Thanks for being here, Sam.